Steelshod digs into their defenses around the river gate. Now they have all 3 ballista online, as well as a large number of mini ballista, the outsized frame-mounted crossbows that can be wielded by 1 or 2 men. Nate's also constructed a similar such crossbow for Prudence that can be assembled and disassembled, loaded with a winch, and mounted to a tripod. A sniper's crossbow, essentially. Elena has been spending most of her time at the Amud Kahal, assisting her old mentor Naomi in particular, working with the council to draft writs and negotiate with the merchants and noble class of Nahash to ensure that the populace is still behind them, that morale stays up, and planning some sort of recompense for those most affected. For example, people who have been displaced from the outer circle, their homes destroyed. Naomi has told Elena that she intends to step down from the council within the year, especially after the stress of this new siege, and she suggests that since Elena's plan to run her own church in Rusk has fallen by the wayside, perhaps she should set her sights a little higher. Elena is certainly making contacts in the city. Her close relationship with Steelshod is well known and lends further reputation. It's a life path she's never considered before. Leona's rage and discontent has not abated in the slightest. For small stints, she seems to have it under control, but mostly, she acts out in a way Hubert and Agrippa have only heard stories about. As bad, or worse, than her behavior in her first commission, after her brother died. She gets blackout drunk every night, picks fights in bars, and generally raises hell. Hubert and Agrippa do what they can to help her keep a lid on this behavior, while some of their friends, such as Bear, Pierre, Robin, and some of the Sons of Victory, tend to just go along with her. Olivenko has always gotten along well with Leona. Shortly after they met, many months ago, he made a pass at her. She'd heard stories about him, and happily agreed. While he was perhaps not quite the lover that some of the raunchier stories made him out to be, it was still quite enjoyable for both parties, and while he doesn't carouse quite as hard as Bear and Robin, who does, he always enjoyed getting a drink with her. Now, he goes mostly to keep an eye on her, especially when Agrippa and Hubert are caught up in their respective duties. Occasionally he intervenes, mostly he just offers quiet advice and stays close to keep her safe and not dead in a gutter, covered in a pool of her own vomit. Alexander and Yoren cut her some slack, given what she's been through, but they worry. Alexander is constantly hard at work at the forge, crafting ballista bolts or working on molding the remaining steel from the comet. He's already replaced Yoren's brigandine armor, crafting a new set of steel plates sandwiched between layers of cloth and leather to muffle the sound and light reflection. And he's working on sets of armor for both Perrin and Gunnar, as 2 more of his longest-term heavy hitters, who have greatly exceeded his expectations by becoming lieutenants and leaders in their own right. After a few days of Leona getting into trouble, Drengi approaches Hubert. He explains that he has smelled something wrong with the woman, which is a pretty weird thing to claim, or would be if Drengi was not Ulfsknar. He explains that Leona has a scent of Berserk rage and hunger about her. Fascinating, Hubert says. And what does that mean, exactly? Is hard to explain, Drengi says. When a Berserk takes a skin, there is ritual to be done. In this ritual, the Berserk honors Ter, gives himself to Ter, and in return, Ter merges his soul with the bear, or wolf, he has slain. Hubert nods, understanding. Go on. Sometimes this not go well. Soul of animal not like soul of man. Things get messy. Rages, hungers, madness, all can follow. Worst when man not ready to be Berserk, not strong enough, or when animal hate man too much. Bad kill, messy kill, or just dishonorable kill even. Drengi pauses, thoughtful. This why Gyul so hungry and so mad. Bad kill. Strong, but bad. What does any of this have to do with Leona? Hubert asks. Drengi shrugs. Not sure. Smells like same. Berserk rage. Like she tried to connect to animal soul and failed. But she didn't, Hubert says. Ja, Drengi agrees. Not know, but smell is there. As is the rage, Hubert agrees. Hubert considers this for a moment. Drengi, could Unferth have done this to her? Forced some sort of false Berserk connection upon her? Drengi shudders. Idea is wrong. What is word? Perverse. Very wrong. Indeed, which sounds totally irrelevant to a man such as Unferth, no? Drengi sighs, nods. Soulless, he mutters. So, possible? Yeah, maybe. Unferth knows all the rituals, all the prayers. He is strong Berserk, in harmony with his bear and with Tear. And if he has done so, what is the solution? Drengi shrugs. Not know. Never seen before on someone without skin. Hubert considers this very carefully. He picks Drengi's brain a little more. They both go to Leona and explain what they believe to her, and try to understand what Unferth did exactly, so that they know what they're dealing with. She doesn't want to talk about it, gets uncomfortable as the topic of the night with Unferth is pressed. Understandably so. They get some info out of her, but it's delicate. Slow going. Drengi is still uncertain how Unferth did what he apparently did. For the time being, Hubert decides to treat the rages as he would any other magical curse. With a simple stopgap, he crafts a Simaruta for her, a ward against evil magic. This she accepts readily. She wears the Simaruta beneath her clothes, and, sure enough, it immediately begins to help her out. She's far from better, but she knows deep down that a huge amount of her anger and frustration and pain has absolutely nothing to do with whatever it is Drengi thinks happened. But there is at least some small seed of formless rage that seems to soften somewhat now that she dons the charm. It lasts about a day. The next morning, she finds that the Simaruta has disintegrated into bits of twig and yarn, and shows signs that look almost like scorch marks. She shows Hubie, and he whips up another for her, trying not to show his concern on his face. A little less than a week passes from when they lost the docks. Each day, the onagers batter splinters off the south walls until a few of the siege engines unexpectedly break down. The Casselines swear up and down that this is sabotage, the work of the Black Wizard. Terbjornsson says that if they continue spreading that rumor through the camp, he will start breaking their legs. After all, they don't need legs to aim an onager. Vartror and Ulfsknar stalk the city, occasionally shooting unaware sentries on the wall from their vantage points in the outer circle. One sentry, an old Tarathian soldier that's served in the garrison for years, disappears. Not the type of man to desert, more likely slain by a Vartror arrow and toppled off the wall in the wrong way, into the outer circle. Terbjornsson has planned his next assault. A heavy concentration of forces on the bridge gate and the river gate. A smaller but sizable force on the farmer's gate and the Tinian gate. He intends to break through the walls today, taking the middle circle and slaughtering the Tarathian civilians. His ultimate victory is in sight. Unferth has been working with the newest high priest, Ivar, the man that took Seraph with him. They put a task to the hunters to prove their skill, and the hunters delivered. Now, the forces assaulting the western wall are given a simple, critical directive. Keep attention focused on the bridge gate and the river gate, not the wall between the two. Unferth and his Berserks are tasked specifically with keeping Ivar safe. Unferth has also learned a second word from the Thaumathi. In Svardic, the word is fell. In Middish, it would be skin or hide. When he speaks it the first time, he feels a surge of energy course through him, and he draws much closer to the spirit of the bear in his bearskin. Invigorating, almost overwhelming, though as it fades, he notices an oddity. In one spot, along his arm, the bearskin clings to him strangely. He peels it off with a growl of pain and a ripping sensation, realizing that the bearskin had actually, in a very small part, fused to his flesh. Interesting. There is a price for everything. Regardless, he looks forward to the next battle. The assault begins at dawn. Initially, it's your standard siege storm warfare. Masses of troops marching through the cityscape, assembling near the gates and pressing assaults, all under fire of arrows, ballistae, and mini-ballistae. They bring out well-made Casseline battering rams to each gate, rolling contraptions, the rams suspended by ropes, with some built-in cover. At the Tenian gate, the ram is the largest, and decorated with the dragon's skull taken down from the walls of Fort Tenian. Svards bring out ladders and ropes as well, and begin fanning out along the walls, trying to scale them. The fighting is ferocious, and the losses on the Svardic side are heavy. Felix, Ben, and the other archers are having a field day above the river gate. Eventually, however, one of them notices something strange occurring along a section of the wall between the bridge and the river gates. They finally realize that there are several priests hunched low along the base of the wall, and it almost looks like they are writing something. Felix and the other archers direct their attention to this area, try to maneuver across the battlements to the wall to get a clear shot. As soon as they do, Bearsarks and Vartror spring out of the woodwork, covering the priests, and putting as much fire as possible down on Steelshod's archers. Felix takes a long shot, manages to ruin a priest's day and possibly his gait by punching a hole through his knee. Ben calls out to the Tarathian archers already in position over the priests, and they lean out to begin shooting, until Unferth emerges from the throng of troops as well. He looks over the battlefield with a smile, calls out a single word: Doom! Many of the Svards recoil and quake at the word, but he focuses his voice and attention towards the top of the wall, and the archers bear the brunt. Felix, Ben, and most of the Steelshod archers feel the sense of doom overwhelm them. They stumble, some of them drop their bows entirely, and only one or two manage to keep putting shaky, poorly aimed arrows down towards the priests. The Tarathian archers fare even worse, collapsing to a man. Many of them are so overwhelmed by the sense of their hopeless, inevitable fate that they simply take nosedives off the wall, plummeting 40 feet down to the ground below, dying from the fall, or finished off by the Bearsarks. Ivar and his men finish their work, retreat from the wall behind their lines, and Ivar grabs the poor Tarathian sentry that the hunters had kidnapped. The man spent many years walking the outer walls of Nahash, his regular post as a militiaman, exactly what Ivar told the hunters he needed. He knows every grain of the wooden walls. He has a strong connection to the place. And that's all the Vlari blood magic requires. Ivar cuts his throat. The wall rumbles. Steelshod troops that still have the wherewithal to do so shout to get off the wall, and down below, inside the walls, Alexander and his melee troops move to prepare for the inevitable. The section of wall shudders, shakes, and rips itself apart. It crumbles into chunks of wood and stone, and the loose gravel and earth inside it pours out like a small avalanche. Perhaps ironically, Steelshod's archers are saved from the collapse, since Unferth's doom stopped their rush in their tracks. But dozens more of the Tarathian archers die or are maimed as they tumble down into the middle of the crumbling wall, leaving the battlefield looking something like this. The Svards all around the bridge and river gates divert their attention, abandoning their rams, and they charge for the newly formed breach in the wall. Alexander stands at the head of his Steelshod, a group of Serpentis, and many Tarathian militia and conscripts. Many of his mounted corps are close at hand, including poor little Oliver. With his infantry and the Sons of Victory covering the edge of the breach, he rallies the men to him and leads a charge into the howling Svardic mob with a defiant cry of "Urya!" The battle for the middle circle has begun. Thank you for tuning in to Steelshod, a series by Mostly Rights, narrated by Tailforge. You can find every chapter in text format, as well as character sheets, setting information, maps, and rule documents on the Steelshod tabletop system in the link below. If you'd like to support the channel, you can pop down to the description and use the Patreon link for recurring donations, the paypal.me link for one-time donations, the Teespring link for shirts with the incredibly cool background art by Nobody, or use the DriveThruRPG affiliate link the next time you're looking to try a new system. If you'd like to support the author, you can find Steelshod merch on the MostlyRights.com store, or donate to the Mostly Rights Patreon, which are both linked on reddit.com/r/mostlyrights down below.